Alright, so today I'm going to show you how to deploy a React application to Heroku. We have right here just a simple React application that I've created while learning React. It's a timer and a countdown app. Pretty simple. It just counts. Cool. And then Heroku, if you're not familiar, is a cloud application platform that allows you to easily host your web applications. And it's very easy. Focused at startups who may not have a ton of money or time to configure AWS. With that said, it's not as powerful as AWS, at least not that I'm aware. So in order to do this, if you're going to follow along with me, you'll need Git installed. You'll also need to sign up for a Heroku account. It's free, no credit card required for what we're doing. And then you'll also need to go to toolbelt.heroku.com. And this downloads the Heroku CLI, command line interface. It gives you instructions for Mac through Brew, also Windows and Linux. Whichever you're using, you can download that. Once that's been downloaded, you can go ahead and open up and install. Open up your PowerShell. You're going to want to type Heroku -- version. Make sure you have the correct version installed. To make sure you have it installed, as you can see, I have Heroku Toolbelt and CLI. And also, you're going to want to log in. So you're going to want to do Heroku login. And then it'll ask for your email and password, which you just created. You'll type those in. And you should be good to go. To make sure that you are logged in, you can do a Heroku auth, who am I, and it should display your email, as you can see here. And that's just to double check that you're logged in. So now we're going to want to go ahead and create a directory, or I have one created already, called TechVid. And then we're going to want to git clone this project into it. So if you go to github.com/gbird3/react timer, you can click the clone or download, as you can see here. And then if you go over git clone, paste that URL in, and it will clone all the code down into a folder called React Timer. So if you change directories into React Timer and do an ls, you can see everything that you need for this video is right here. We will want to check out the tech video branch. I've just gotten rid of some of the configs so that we can go through that together on this branch. And then we're going to want to do an npm install. This will install everything within our package.json. And as you can see here, there's quite a few dependencies. A lot of these are for testing and compiling the application. And then we have React Router and Express. And we'll talk about Express. Express is what we're going to use to deploy our application. It's a simple node server that kind of gets rid of a lot of the headache of configuration, and it's used for HTTP. So it's definitely not something you'd want to use for production. You'd want to look into something a little bit more advanced. So this is great for a simple website, or if you're demoing an application or something like that. So let's go ahead and do an npm install. There are quite a few packages, so I'm going to go ahead and pause the video while this installs on my machine, and then we'll continue from there. Alright, so that finished installing all of our packages. So now we're going to go ahead and open up that code in our Atom text editor. And here it comes. And we'll take a quick look at the application. So as you can see here, we have all of our app and our components in React. We have a clock.js, controls.js, countdown.js, everything that compiles that application we looked at is in here. Then we also have this public folder, and this is what Heroku, or what we're going to tell Heroku to look at. So we have our index.html, which is just our index page, and then we also have this bundle.js. And this bundle.js is actually created from the webpack.config file that we have here. Webpack is a fairly advanced configuration package that allows you to take all of your code that we have in our app folder and compile it down into a bundle.js file. And so I won't go into any of that as it's fairly complex, and I barely remember how I set this up myself. But you can use this Webpack config, or also there are plenty of tutorials out there to figure out how to set up your own Webpack. So when you run Webpack, it creates this bundle.js file that is accessible to our index.js, as you can see here. So that's kind of how this application works. Now we're going to take a look at the server. As I mentioned earlier, server.js file. As I mentioned earlier, we're going to use the Express server, and so we're going to go ahead and we first need to import the Express server into our application. So we do that through const express equals require express. Once we've got that into our application, we need to create the app. That's all we need to do for that is do let app equal express, an instance of the Express server. Then we need to tell the application where our static files are. So static dot, or it's static public. That's in our public folder. And then app.listen. This will have the application listening on port 3000 function. And all this function is going to do is log out Express server is up on port 3000. Now this will get it running for your local environment. In order to get this running on Heroku, we need to change the port because Heroku isn't expecting it to be on port 2000. It has its own way of defining ports. So all we need to do is say const port and set that equal to an environment variable that Heroku will give us. We do process.env.port, and that accesses that port. And then we can also say or 3000, just to set it as a default for when we're doing local. And we can change our port 3000 here to port, and then also change this to concatenate the port on the end. Now, one last thing is Heroku is going to be looking for an npm start script. These scripts are things that you can define in your package.json, and so we're just going to define a script called start, and then we're going to do node server.js, which is our file that we just created. So all that is going to do is run node server.js. So for example, if we come over here to our PowerShell, we can do npm start, and that is going to run the node server.js file, as you can see here, and our local application should be up on port 3000. And here it is. So now we want to deploy this to Heroku. It's actually fairly simple. All we need to do at this point is say Heroku create. What this does is it creates a URL through Heroku for you to access. So it's the Radiant Refuge -42585, and then it also creates a remote, a Git remote. So as you can see here, we have our GitHub remote, but also this git.heroku.com that we can push to. So now let's go ahead and commit the code that we have created. So added server.js. And then we just need to push that code to Heroku. So if we do git push Heroku master, this is going to push all of the code that we've changed and all of our code in our project up into the Heroku repository that was created. Then, as you can see here, Heroku detects that it's a node.js app, and then it also starts installing all of the node dependencies. It runs npm install because it's a node app, and then it runs our npm start script. And as you can see here, it says, here's our URL that we can go to if we want to see our website live, or we can also do Heroku open. And Heroku, and that should just open up your application. It might take a minute or two to get it running because it's still deploying, but here you go. Here's our application, our countdown application. As you can see, it should work, and it's on this website URL here that we could go to, and anybody could go to that. So that's how you can deploy a React application to Heroku. And also, if you are familiar with React, this was not made using the Facebook create React app script. But if you're interested in using that script, you can also just type in React on Heroku, and it says there's a blog here, deploying React with 0 configuration. It's the Heroku blog. And this uses the create React app, and it's actually fairly simple, even more simple than what I just did, because it uses a certain build pack. So you can go ahead and look into that if you use the create React app that Facebook has made. So that's it. Just to kind of recap real quick, all we had to do was create our server.js file, set a environment variable so that Heroku can put in the port that it's on, and then it starts to listen on that port. We added a start script of node server.js to our package.json. We simply then had to do Heroku create to create the URL, then push that up using git push Heroku master, and with that, it deployed our application to Heroku. So thanks for watching, and that's all.